And IIT Madras, we have Abhinav, Aditya, UK Arvindan, and Krishna. Good afternoon, everyone. Traversing through the excitement of the past few days, we have finally reached the last quizzing buzz, the rapid fire of Mimamsa 2023. And as some would argue, probably the most thrilling event. I hope you all, the teams and the spectators alike, hold on to your seats for this enthralling experience. Rapid fire will happen in 2 sessions. First would be the non-buzzer round. The second would be the buzzer round. The rules for the non-buzzer round are as follows. The rapid fire, 2 rounds, we have the non-buzzer round. The direct questions would be directed at each teams. There would be 4 rounds comprising of 5 questions each. That essentially means that one team, that would be the starting team, would get to answer 2 questions per round, which would switch as we move on from one round to the other. They will be required to choose a different subject. The team which will be answering the two questions for that round would be required to choose different subjects for both those turns. All the teams in each round will have to choose a subject they want to answer the question from. Note that one team can choose a particular subject just once. That is, if Team A has chosen biology as a subject to answer their question in the first round, the same Team A cannot choose biology in further rounds. In case of an incorrect or no answer from a team, a member will get eliminated and will join the audience until that particular team answers a direct question correctly. In case of an incorrect answer or no answer, the question will be passed on to the next team, and the point distribution for that will be 5, 3, 2, and 1. 5 points being if the direct question, if the question is answered correctly by the directed team, and 3, 2, and 1 would be the passing sequence. No cross-questioning would be allowed during the commencement of the rounds. Each team gets 30 seconds of thinking time for a question directed at them that they have to answer in few sentences. The timer will be displayed on the screen. Note that for a past question, you don't get any thinking time. That is, you have to answer instantaneously. Without further ado, we commence the first round now. I request Professor Madhusudan to pick a chit for selecting the starting team. We begin with IIT Delhi. Which subject would you like to choose? Physics. So we have the first question from physics.
Excuse me? Do we have any paper or pen?
No. Yeah, I don't think so. There is no paper or pen. Yeah, first question of physics. A sleazy scientist, Somil, is studying the decay process of particle A in vacuum. For each decay, particles B and C of respective masses mb and mc are detected such that mb is much greater than mc. It was expected that the kinetic energy distribution would be sharp, owing to the enormous difference in the masses. But a significant spread was observed, as shown in the figure. Provide a possible mechanism for this to happen. Your time starts now. It's there on the screen.
We believe that since the mass of B is more, C might be being produced more than B, so that the spread of kinetic energy is not that sharp.
Is the answer correct? That is incorrect. One member would have to be eliminated. Question passes on to Team IIT Madras. Would you like to answer?
Okay, do we lose a member if we answer wrong?
No, you don't lose a member if you answer wrong.
So what we would say is that like the particles, as particles of A decompose into particles of B and C, some of these B and C collide with other particles of A, and these A now have some initial velocities. This leads to the B and C that further evolved having different velocities and different kinetic energies, which gives the distribution.
Incorrect again. The question passes on to IISc Bangalore.
We think that the particles of A can be initially traveling with several different velocities, and owing to the direction of emission of B and C, you could have different kinetic energies based on the initial velocities.
Is that incorrect? I'm sorry about that. I'll just confirm what, if something can be done. We apologize for the misunderstanding. Since the sheets weren't provided to you in time, you're exempted from the elimination for this question. Thank you. We proceed further with Team IIT Madras. Which subject would you like to choose? Okay, so we have the first question from mathematics. A regular dodecahedron has 12 faces, which are regular pentagons, 20 vertices, 30 edges. We can try to fit a cube inside a regular dodecahedron such that all the vertices of the cube coincide with any 8 vertices of the dodecahedron as shown. How many distinct cubes of the same size can be fit inside a regular dodecahedron as shown in the image, where distinct refers to using a different subset of 8 vertices of the regular dodecahedron? Your time starts now. Five seconds remaining. Would you like to answer?
Is it 11?
No, that's incorrect.
The answer is incorrect. The question passes to team IISc Bangalore.
12.
That's incorrect.
That's incorrect. Question passes to IIT Bombay.
5.
Yes, that's correct. But could you explain?
So each of the pentagons, 2 of the vertices of a pentagon are connected in each of the pentagons. So we can have 5 basically combinations from that.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. 2 points to IIT Bombay. We move on to the next team. Yeah. I did announce that. Okay, first point. We move on to the next team, IISc Bangalore. Which subject would you like to choose? Chemistry. First question from chemistry. Two thermometers with equal bulb volume are taken, one with mercury and one with alcohol, and are placed in hot water. Which one will show the temperature of the water faster and why? Your time starts now.
Mercury.
Could you explain your answer?
It is probably related to the coefficient of expansion.
That is incorrect.
Sorry, coefficient of conductivity, thermal conductivity.
You have given an answer. I'll have to take that one.
Thermal conductivity of mercury is much higher than that of alcohol.
That's correct.
Okay, 5 points to IISc Bangalore. Another thing, from the previous round, IIT Madras, one member would have to be eliminated. So kindly move to the audience, one of you. Please make the decision quickly. Moving on to the next team, IIT Bombay. Which subject would you like to choose? Mathematics. Second question from mathematics. Does there exist an infinite subsequence of the sequence shown, which is in harmonic progression? Your time starts now. You have 10 seconds. Time up.
The answer is no, because if you, this question is equivalent to asking if the series of squares can form an AP, an infinite AP, which is not possible. If you draw the graph of n square, then any straight line will only intersect it in 2 points at most, so it won't form any infinite subsequence.
No, that's not a valid reason.
That's an incorrect answer. One member would have to be eliminated. The question passes on to Team IIT Delhi.
We also believe it to be no, but for the reason we came that this essentially means x square plus z, it should equal to solve that. X square plus z square is equal to 2x square z square by y square, which for all the numbers between.
For it to be an even square, because they are odd squares, so it can't be an even number, but for an even square, there has to be a factor of 4 there.
Okay, that isn't the full explanation we would require.
It's an incomplete explanation. Question passes on to IIT Madras. You wouldn't like to answer? Okay, the question is passed. The question goes to IISc Bangalore.
Yeah, so this is indeed equivalent to asking for an arithmetic progression in the set of squares, but if there existed an infinite arithmetic progression in the set of squares, then that would imply arbitrarily large squares being separated by distance less than a particular number d. But the difference between squares keeps growing. It's indeed 2n plus 1 between n plus 1 square and n square. So it would imply 2n plus 1 is bounded, which cannot be true.
That's correct.
That's the correct answer. 1 point. Not
So
right now.
one way to
okay.
look at, I'll just finish off with the solution. One way to look at this is that the difference remains constant, and you can factorize that because it's squares. Now you can get an infinite sequence of numbers which are increasing and still dividing d. So that's not possible. That's why you can't have an infinite sequence.
Okay, yeah. With that, we move on to the next team. This would be the second question to IIT Madras, to IIT Delhi for this round. Which subject would you like to choose? Mathematics. Third question from mathematics. Consider the equation 7 to m equals to 5 to n plus 24. How many solutions m comma n, where m and n belong to positive integers, exist? Explain. You have 10 seconds.
We
think only one solution exists, that is m is equals to 2, n is equals to 2.
Is that the correct answer?
Explain.
We can't come up with
I can try to explain. So we have 7 is equal to 2 mod 5 and 24 is equal to 4 mod 5. So basically, for it to be a multiple of 7, we want 5 to the power n to, so 24 is basically 3 mod 7 and 5 is 2 mod 7. So any power of n, 5 to the power n will give us 2 to the power n mod 7. So only for n is equal to 2, we have 4 plus 3. For any other combination, for any n higher than that, we'll not have a 7 to the power m, which is the RHS is the perfect multiple of 7 there.
That's correct. Okay.
Okay. That is the correct answer. 5 points to IIT Delhi. With this, we have reached the end of our first round.
So, like, I'll just finish off what their idea was. You could also look at this, since 24 is divisible by 4 and 3, you could just get rid of it looking at it mod 3 and mod 4, and then you could factorize as follows. And since m and n should be even, you get this factorization, and then there's just 2 cases you have to deal with. Only one of them gives the solution.
Before we move on to the next round, one member has to be eliminated. We begin the second round with IIT Madras. Which subject would you like to choose? ECS. First question from ECS. Town A and Town B are equidistant from the hypocenter of an earthquake. Given that the energy of the earthquake is propagated by seismic waves, which town will register the earthquake first in their seismographs? Note that the volcano shown has no bearing on the process. Town B, please say the answer.
And the reason for that?
So basically, the pressure waves will travel faster in solids. So the path to town B is to a perfectly solid plate, while the path to town A is broken in the middle.
That is correct, but the reason is not because of the broken plate, it's because of this.
Is that the correct answer?
Yeah, it was correct.
It is the correct answer.
But
5 points
so there's
to Team IIT
an
Madras.
additional point to that. Can you go back there? Yeah. So the reason the town A reads the seismic waves later is because of the waves have to pass through this viscous fluid. Yeah, so.
Given that you answered it correctly, you get the opportunity to revive a member. But remember that this revival can happen only once. So, do you choose to revive now? Okay, one member is revived for IIT Madras. We move on to the next team. 5 points for IIT Madras. IISc Bangalore. Which question? Which subject? ECS. ECS second question. In a balanced glacier, the net accumulation is equal to net ablation, that is melting, and the altitude at which this relation satisfies is called the equilibrium line of altitude, ELA. Consider a balanced glacier. How do you think the altitude of the ELA will change if the temperature of the planet keeps increasing? The figure is there for reference. You have 10 seconds.
We think the ELA will rise up because as temperature increases, surface temperature will increase. So it will require us to go to higher heights to find low temperatures.
And the melting will also increase, so we need higher emulsion. So.
Yeah, that is correct.
That is the correct answer. 5 points to IISc. We move on to the next team, IIT Bombay. Which subject? Physics. Question 2 of physics. Diabolically evil alien overlord Dhruv wants to make a timer for a bomb placed at Princess Tanya's castle. He mixes protons and electrons at different temperatures, assuming that they will equilibrate and reach a common temperature, which would trigger the explosion, killing everyone in the castle. Will the princess live? Assume the temperatures are sufficiently large such that no bound state forms between a proton and an electron. Your time starts. You have 10 seconds. Your time is up.
So because there will be no bound state between the proton and electron, then the system will never reach equilibrium and the explosion will not occur. So the princess will live.
That is not correct.
That is the incorrect answer. The question passes to IIT Delhi.
Because of the bound states not available, the protons and electrons will only interact elastically, and then the energies would remain the same and the temperatures would remain the same of both of them. They will not equilibrate.
Could you elaborate? Why would the temperature remain the same?
Because they collide elastically only.
That is not entirely correct.
That is the incorrect answer. Question passes to IIT Madras. Would you like to answer?
What I think, like, since electrons have less mass than proton and like they're highly energetic, they will have more RMS velocity, so have higher temperature than protons, so it won't reach equilibrium. So like electrons will have higher RMS velocity than protons, so they won't have this like reach the equilibrium.
That is not correct.
That is the incorrect answer. Question passes to IISc.
The potential energy of the electrons as a whole and the potential energy of the protons as a whole will remain constant over time because of the large kinetic energy and the fact that no bound state forms between them. So on the average, the potential energies will remain the same. So the temperatures of the electrons are constant, and so the same for protons, and so they will not reach equilibrium.
That is not correct.
That's not the correct answer. This question would go to the QMC. Before IIT Bombay, one member would be eliminated.
Does anyone in the audience want to take up the question?
Nobody, I
Okay.
guess.
Yeah.
QMC it is.
In that case, sorry, okay. All right. Cool.
So the answer is basically that electrons are much, much lighter than protons. So when they collide, they basically no energy transfer happens, and therefore they don't equilibrate, and hence the actual temperature remains different for the protons and for the electrons.
Yeah. Yes, there's no significant change in velocity or speed because of the huge mass difference. The only thing that changes is generally the angle at which the electron is moving. So VRMS remains nearly the same and temperature remains nearly the same. Yeah, but then the mass difference is the main factor.
Yeah, the cross-questioning would be later. Coming on to IIT Delhi, the next question is for you. Which subject? Biology. So first question of biology. In animals A and B, sex determination is like that of humans, XX and XY. Suppose we take cells from female embryos of a particular species of A and B and grow 2 cultures for each species. In both species, for cells with 2 X chromosomes, one is always inactive, but this pattern of inactivation differs between the two subclasses. The cultures only stop growing and die out when both X chromosomes remain active. Explain the pattern of inactivation in species A and species B. The table is there for your reference. Your time starts now. Ten seconds remaining. Your time is up.
So we believe that in A, the inheritance is from, in B, the inheritance is like from the mother. So one of the X chromosomes in the female species is inactive, but in A, the X chromosomes in the male species are inactive. So we can say that the male, because it's one X chromosome, like in females there's two X chromosomes, so even if one is active, then also the culture survives.
Clarify your answer. It's a bit confusing the way you said. I mean, just say it again once.
Okay, so basically in A the culture dies because the inactivation is in the X chromosome in the males, but in B the culture survives because there are two X chromosomes in the females. So we essentially have, even if there's one active chromosome, it will survive because there will be one inactive chromosome in the maternal, like in the female species of B. Sorry.
The answer is incorrect.
Incorrect answer. One member would have to be eliminated. The question passes on to IIT Madras. Would you like to answer? The question is passed to IISc Bangalore.
In culture A, it's always a paternal X chromosome that is inactivated. So in that case, if we mutate the paternal X chromosome to be active, the culture dies because as it is given that it will stop growing when both X chromosomes remain active.
In culture B, the organism makes sure that if one of them is active, like the other one is rendered inactive. And in culture A, the maternal one is always active.
Yeah, the answer is correct.
That is the correct answer. 2 points. 2 points to IISc. With this, yeah, would you like to explain the answer?
Okay, yeah. So what's happening is that in the B species, in culture B, any of the chromosome, whether paternal or maternal, can be inactivated. So that mutation, if you are forcing the paternal chromosome to be active, the cell can always inactivate the maternal chromosome so that there is proper dosage. But in A case, maternal chromosomes cannot be inactivated. So if you force the paternal to be active, then there are two active chromosomes and the culture dies. Thank you.
Okay, I request one member to move. Thank you. Last question of this round for IIT Madras with subject. Please choose fast. Physics. Third question of physics. A mistress of mischief, Shady Srijani, tries to deceive people by performing a magic trick. She takes a container with water at some temperature T. She now places her finger on the surface of the water, at which point the water starts to freeze, starting from her finger, instantaneously. Explain the trick. Your time starts now. Do you wish to answer?
No, can I clarify? Is T a general temperature which we do not know, or is T a particular fixed temperature which we don't know?
Yeah, it's a temperature you have to tell me what temperature that is.
Okay. We'd say that the water has been super cooled, so it's below its freezing point, but it's still liquid due to the lack of sites around which it can start freezing.
That is correct.
That is the correct answer. 5 points to IIT Madras. With this, we have reached the end of round 2. We begin with round 3, IISc Bangalore. Which subject would you like to choose? Mathematics. Last question of mathematics. Ninad draws the graph of a polynomial with integer coefficients. Madhukar joins 2 points on it having integer coordinates. Both the x and y coordinates are integers, using a line segment. If the distance between the 2 points is also an integer, the line segment he draws is parallel to the x-axis. Explain. Your time starts now. You have 10 seconds. Your time is up. Would you like to answer? Okay, one member would have to be eliminated. The question passes to IIT Bombay.
So the distance between the 2 points is also an integer. So we can say that if x1, y1 and x2, y2 are the coefficients, are the points on the graph, then under root of x1 minus x2 square plus y1 minus y2 square is also an integer. And so x1 minus x2, y1 minus y2 should form a Pythagorean triplet with some other point.
But why does the line segment have to be parallel to the x-axis? That's what you have to explain.
Since the coefficients of the polynomial are integers, then we can't find a Pythagorean triplet, and so one of those terms, y1 minus y2, has to be 0. x1 minus x2 can't be 0 because then it won't be a function anymore.
Why can't you find a Pythagorean triplet? Explain.
Okay. The question passes to IIT Delhi. Would you like to answer?
What I feel is that since it's a function, if we consider that y2 minus y1 is some k for which x2 minus x1 k and the integer c is forming a Pythagorean triplet, then we can have like multiple values of x2 minus x2 and x1. So it won't be a definite function because we'll have like multiple mappings from the domain to the codomain for that.
That's not correct.
The question passes to IIT Madras.
So what I think is, since y2 minus y1 square plus x2 minus x1 square under root will be an integer, but since x2 minus x1 can take any arbitrary value, so y2 minus y1 has to be 0 to give it a perfect integer. And since y2 minus y1 is also divisible by x2 minus x1 because they have integer coefficients.
Yeah, that is correct.
That is the correct answer. 1 point to IIT Madras.
The main idea is that since everything here is an integer, you have a divisibility condition. So x1 minus x2 divides the difference in the y coordinates. And then from that, the distance being an integer implies that implies the condition. That is, the y coordinates have to be same.
Okay. The second question of round 3 goes to IIT Bombay. Which subject? ECS. Third question from ECS. Surface albedo is defined as the ratio of the amount of radiation reflected by the surface by the amount of radiation that hits the surface. Albedo of 1 corresponds to complete reflection of the incoming radiation, and 0 corresponds to no reflection of incident radiation. Albedo is the property of a surface that varies greatly over the Earth due to a wide variety of surfaces. Here is the histogram plot which plots all those 1 by 1 degree cells, latitude, longitude cells, that have an albedo greater than 0.65 into their corresponding latitude bins. Suggest reasons for why this plot makes sense. Your time is up.
So because as the latitudes are mentioned, they correspond to the north and the south poles. And so because at the poles there is more reflection as compared to absorption. Yeah, so albedo is greater than 0.65, and also
Yeah, it's not, the graph is not symmetrical because the Earth's axis is tilted. So the North Pole is going to be, one of the poles is going to be closer to the sun than the other. So the graph is not symmetrical.
You said something about when you go towards the pole, you would have more reflection than absorption. Why do you think so?
Yeah, so maybe there's ice caps towards the towards the poles, and it's a colder temperature, so that's why there's more reflection.
Yeah, that is.
I by mr square of a homogeneous sphere is 2 by 5. What do you think this ratio would be for spherical Earth, given that the Earth's core accounts for more than 30% and that the mantle for about 70% of the mass of the Earth, where I refers to the moment of inertia, m is the total mass, and r is the radius of the sphere of Earth?
So, because the farther the mass away from from the center of the axis, the more there would be the moment of inertia. Hence, we think that the ratio would be higher than 2 by 5.
Incorrect.
It's incorrect? Okay, the answer is incorrect. One more member would have to be eliminated. The question passes to IIT Madras.
We would say that the ratio is 176 by 300.
We're just asking whether it be lower or higher than 2 by 5.
Than 2 by 5. 176 by 200 is higher.
Again, incorrect.
The answer is incorrect. Question passes to IISc Bangalore.
Since the core has a higher density than the mantle and the crust, we expect a higher percentage of the mass to be closer to the center of the Earth. And so by the same reasoning as IIT Delhi, we would expect a lower moment of inertia, since mass away from the center leads to higher moment of inertia.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's the correct answer. 2 points to IISc. Okay, yeah, one member. Next question of third round goes to IIT Madras with subject. Chemistry. Second question of chemistry. Metals can be thought of as a collection of nuclei immersed in a sea of free electrons and being held together by metallic bonds. This implies that when a piece of metal is cut and the pieces are pressed together, they should stick to each other due to free flow of electrons. Why is this not seen? Your time starts now.
We would see this in space where this is called cold welding. On Earth, this doesn't happen because of rapid oxidation or some form of reaction with the atmosphere.
And what does that oxidation do?
Like it's no longer the metal on the surfaces, so they can't stick together. They form some other compound, and the electrons can no longer flow freely beyond this point.
That is correct.
That is the correct answer. 5 points to IIT Madras. The last question of round 3, IISc Bangalore. Which subject? Biology. In a region, two populations, A and B, of a species are separated by a river which has been present for thousands of years, and X and Y are two genetic diseases highly prevalent in A and B, respectively. When the river dries out due to unprecedented climate change, the diseases decrease highly in prevalence. The two diseases, X and Y, do not affect each other in any way. Explain. Your time starts now.
In this case, since the two populations now can intermingle, we expect that we can hypothesize that the X and Y are caused due to recessive genes. The percentage of recessive genes decreases as the populations can intermingle and freely breed among themselves.
What do you mean by percentage of recessive genes decreasing?
I mean the proportion of members with both recessive gene genotype and hence a recessive phenotype, that is the diseased condition.
Yeah, the answer is correct.
That is the correct answer. 5 points to IISc. With this, we have come to the end of round 3. We will now begin with round 4. Yeah, oh yeah, one member is revived. I'm so sorry. For the last round, the first question is directed at IIT Bombay. Chemistry. Why does continued consumption of heavy water cause death in humans, even though deuterium itself is non-toxic? Time starts now. Your time is up.
So the deuterium from D2O replaces the hydrogen in the compounds in the body. And so since carbon deuterium bond is stronger, this can lead to different reaction dynamics, and it will lead to different rate of reactions, which will cause improper functioning in the body and can cause death.
That is basically correct, yeah.
That is the correct answer. No, only one revival per team. 5 points to IIT Bombay. Moving on to the next team, IIT Delhi, with subject chemistry. Last question of chemistry. Which carbene among A and B has better pi acceptor properties and why? What are the compounds? Can the QMC explain the question? The molecules would be there on the board. Please take a look. Yeah, we'll bring the board there. I repeat the question. Which carbene among A and B has better pi acceptor properties and why? The molecules are on the board for you to see. Time starts now. Ten seconds.
So in the B part, because of the presence of the ring, it cannot rotate, and the two electrons will be in the same orbital, and hence there will be a free orbital present in B. So that's why we think that it should have more accepted properties.
That is incorrect.
That is incorrect. Another member eliminated. Yeah, it is the last round. Question passes to IIT Madras.
We think that it would be in the ring because of the angular strain causing the pi orbitals to bend in a weird angle, and that makes them very accessible. Like, it is to do with the fact that the angular strain is there on the orbitals. In the other case, it's perfectly 180 degrees, but here, because it's bent, you have more electron concentration or something of the sort.
That is incorrect.
The question passes to IISc.
We think B is the answer because of the rigidity. The nitrogen lone pair is. Oh wait.
The nitrogen lone pair can interact with the carbon's p orbital. So this carbene would probably be singlet, which would have an empty p orbital, which is better pi accepting.
That is incorrect.
That is incorrect. Question passes to IIT Bombay.
So due to angle strain in the V ring, if we add, so if it accepts a pi acceptor compound, then it will become sp3, which will release the angle strain and it will become more stable.
That is also incorrect.
That is the incorrect answer.
Does anyone in the audience want to try? Okay, never mind. So, IIT Delhi, you had the right reasoning but the wrong answer. Because it can't rotate, the lone pairs can be donated into the empty p orbital. That's why it's a worse pi acceptor, because electron density is already present inside the p orbital.
Okay, so that is the correct answer. One member would have to be eliminated. Okay. Next question to IIT Madras. Which subject? I mean, there is only one left.
We have the fourth question of physics left, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you only have physics left. Rest all subjects you've covered, if I'm not wrong.
No, we covered.
Then I think you haven't done biology. Okay. So next question from biology. Amaya, the octopus, and Nimisha, the needlefish, use hemocyanin and hemoglobin to transport oxygen respectively. The graphs for oxygen saturation versus partial pressure of oxygen are given below. Assume that all other factors apart from PO2, that is partial pressure of oxygen, are kept constant in the species. Which animal is better adapted for high oxygen demand during exercise and why? Your time starts now. Five seconds. Your time is up. Would you like to answer?
We'd say the octopus because it takes less partial pressure to reach higher oxygen concentrations.
Can you repeat the answer?
We'd say Amaya the octopus because it takes lower partial pressure of oxygen to reach a higher saturation concentration of oxygen.
Octopus is hemocyanin. So you are saying the octopus will be better
Hemocyanin,
adapted?
yeah.
For exercise?
Sorry?
You're saying it's better adapted for exercise?
Yeah.
Okay, it's incorrect.
It's incorrect. The question passes to IISc.
The answer is hemoglobin. Nimisha will be better adapted. That's because it can release more oxygen at a. Yeah, it can easily lose oxygen as compared to the other.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's the correct answer. 3 points to IISc. And one member eliminated. Fair enough. Next question directed at IISc Bangalore. Physics. Crazy Karthik wants to put physics in shambles by disapproving Gauss's law. Consider the following setup. Given is an infinitely long conducting slab with the slab's thickness being its only finite dimension. Upon subjecting the slab to a uniform electric field, charges accumulate to nullify the field in the conductor. He constructs a trapezoidal Gaussian surface such that the parallel surfaces of the trapezoid are through the walls of the conductor. Since the electric field in any conductor is 0, there seems to be a violation of Gauss's law due to the shape of the surface, as there is a net accumulation of charges on the surface. Is the Gauss's law violated? 10 seconds. Time is up.
There is no violation of Gauss's law because there is a net flux, and since the area, there's a net flux because the areas are different on both sides, and there is charge inside again because the areas are different on both sides. So there is no violation of Gauss.
That is incorrect.
That is okay.
That is incorrect. The question passes to IIT Bombay.
There is no violation of Gauss's law because Gauss's law says E into A is Q by epsilon, not Q by epsilon. And so Q by A should remain constant rather than Q actually being constant.
Sorry, could you
Charge?
repeat? That is incorrect.
That is incorrect. Question passes to Delhi. You want to pass the question to Madras?
We would say that Gauss's law is not violated, as if we see the trapezoid, let's take the slanted faces. In these faces, when we calculate the flux, it would come as less than the outgoing flux to the straight face on the other side. So there is, in fact, some net flux in this shape.
That is incorrect.
That is incorrect. The question goes to the audience. Would anyone like to answer? I see no hands, so... Oh, there.
Is it because the permittivity is different?
No. So the answer is that there is no net flux because there's no field inside the conductor. But you see, the surface is placed such that the charge is not inside the surface. It's not enclosed in the surface. It's on the edges of the surface. And Gauss's law is not. Gauss's law talks about charge being enclosed inside the surface. That's why.
Okay, that is the answer. Next question directed at IIT Bombay. Biology. In Drosophila embryo, two proteins called twist and snail were shown to play an important role in the differentiation of the pre-mesoderm stem cells into mature mesoderm by a series of loss-of-function mutation analysis. The table is given for your reference. Please note that undifferentiated cells are not the same as non-mesodermal cells. The latter are differentiated just to some other fate. Based on this information, explain the exact role of twist and snail in mesoderm differentiation. Your time starts now. Your time starts now. Ten seconds. 5. Your time is up. Would you like to answer?
So in this case, the twists are not exactly regulating the expression of the thing that the differentiation of the pre-mesodermal stem cells into mature mesoderm. But the snails, they are exhibiting the regulation, and so when both the snail and twist are mutated and present, only then the cells will all of the cells will differentiate into non-mesodermal fate.
What is the exact role of twist and snail?
Regulation of genes.
That's too vague, and that's not what we want more details. Yeah. What is the exact role?
So the twists and the snails are basically controlling if the cell will differentiate further or not.
That's too vague. You have to tell the exact role. Please pass on.
Question passes to Delhi.
So as I said, twist and snail are in the differentiation process. But in the first part, when twist is only mutated, we have snail. So twist plays the role in differentiation, but snail plays the role in assigning the proper functions to the cells after they have been differentiated. Like the de-differentiation and redifferentiation of the cells, we could say.
You have to answer in terms of mesodermal, non-mesodermal. Which one does what?
It's said that non-mesodermal are subjected to some other fate. So that implies that snail controls the non-mesodermal cells to differentiate into the thing they are meant to do, like the nerves are meant to be a part of the CNS and so on.
Okay,
And so
you can't say control. You have to say whether inhibits or whether activates.
activates.
That's incorrect.
That's incorrect. Question passes to Madras. Would you like to answer? No. Question passes to IISc. Would you like to answer?
I think snail inhibits while twist promotes.
Speak a bit louder.
The snail protein inhibits the differentiation while the twist promotes it. Yeah.
Inhibits the differentiation of what?
Of the pre-mesoderm stem cells into the mature mesoderm cells.
And what does twist do?
Twist promotes it, the differentiation.
Okay, that's correct.
That is the correct answer. 1 point to IISc. With this, we have come to the end of the non-buzzer round. And we are ready to move on to the buzzer round. So all the participants which were eliminated, please come back on stage and join your respective teams. Okay. Before we begin with the buzzer round, we're going to do a short buzzer test. So I request all the teams to please be ready. And when I say so, you are supposed to press your buzzer. Oh, are we testing right now? Is it reset? Yeah, okay. Please press your buzzers. Okay, I request you to press your buzzers one by one. So first, IISc, Bombay, sorry, Delhi. Did you press? Okay, Delhi, did you press the buzzer? Okay, shows. Madras? No, but we are getting the count over there, right? Yeah, it's working. Fourth one as well? Could you press again?
Could you just verify again? Because we don't think it's working here.
We are not getting any sound.
I see. The fourth one is working. We'll test once again for Delhi. Press again, please. It's working. Pardon? Just press it once. That's it. Don't worry about it. The machine is going to record it. Madras, can you please press the buzzer once? Yeah, okay. So with this, we're all set to move to the second category, that is the buzzer round. The rules are as follows. There are 15 questions in total. The team to press the buzzer first gets to answer. 3 points are awarded for a correct answer. 1 point is deducted for an incorrect answer. There is no passing of the question amongst the teams. However, in case of no answer or an incorrect answer, the questions go to the audience and then to the QMCs. Any clarifications? Okay, with this we begin the buzzer round. First question. In the Y chromosome of an organism, region A frequently undergoes recombination with the homologous region in the X chromosome, while region B does not recombine. Then, in which region are deleterious mutations more likely to accumulate? Assume no recombination-related mutations or repair. Just saying that alleles in that region are not getting exchanged with alleles from the X chromosome is not a valid answer. Nobody has pressed the buzzer? The question goes to the audience. Whoever presses the buzzer first will answer. The question won't go to the audience. Since no one has pressed the buzzer, we'll move on to the next question. I request the QMC to answer this question.
So will anyone in the audience like to answer?
Like in the region A, there would be a repair mechanism, homologous repair. So if if a deleterious mutation is there in a region, so it could go under homologous repair. But in the region B, there would be no homologous repair. So
Well,
A would be more probable.
Well, it was given in the question, you do not assume any recombination-related repair or mutations. So without assuming this, you have to answer.
Then
Is that the correct answer? No, it's not. Okay.
Yeah, so let me just explain the answer. It's a bit difficult question. So what happens is that the region which does not recombine, those alleles are basically those loci, or those alleles are fixed on the Y chromosome always because they're never going to the X chromosome. So they are always present in a heterozygous state. They are never coming together in a homozygous state. So if some recessive mutation happens in the region which does not undergo recombination, it will not be subject to selection because it's always in a heterozygous state. Whereas if some recessive mutation happens in the region which undergoes recombination, it will enter the X chromosome as well, and there is a chance that two X chromosomes with the mutation will come together, and that mutation will be expressed, and so it will be subject to selection, so it will be removed from, it will be weeded out, narrated. Yeah, that's the answer.
Before we move on to the next question, I would like to reiterate the point that the first to press the buzzer gets to answer. Right after I finish dictating the question, make sure that you only take 10 to 15 seconds to answer or press the buzzer. Yeah, I hope that is clear.
Can you give us a fixed amount of time?
30 seconds at max. And we are keeping track of time, so I'll let you know when the question goes to the QMC. Move on to the next question. Chemistry. Identify the acidic proton and explain the relatively high acidity of ascorbic acid. I see.
It's D, it's extended conjugation.
Is that the correct answer?
That is the correct answer.
That is the
Yes.
correct answer. 3 points to IISc. Okay, next question. Banded iron formations, or BIFs, are units of sedimentary rocks that are formed by layers of iron oxide and iron-poor silica. Majority of the BIFs were dated and found to have been formed between late Archean to Paleoproterozoic, although there are some records of them being formed in the Neoproterozoic and early Cambrian as well. Given that FeO has a high solubility in oxygen-poor water and precipitates as Fe2O3 when oxidized, what major geologic event would have caused the disappearance of BIFs?
This might be because of evolution of evolution of oxygen releasing photosynthetes like cyanobacteria.
Yeah, that is correct.
That is the correct answer. 3 points to IISc. Next question. Kinjal, the brinjal, travels on the interval 0 to 1 from left to right by jumping. Each jump from x to y costs y to 6 minus xy to 5 units of energy. Each jump has to start and end inside the interval and is only from left to right. Is it possible for him to travel from 0 to 1 in a finite number of steps if he has total energy 0.165 units? Explain briefly. He starts from 0 and has to reach 1. Time is up.
You want to answer? Sure.
Sure.
It is possible for it to jump in a finite number of steps because we see that the integral of y to the power 5 dy from 0 to 1 is 1 by 6, which is larger than 0.166. So some like Riemann approximation of the integral will have an area which is between these two. Yeah.
Your reasoning was correct, your answer was wrong. The integral comes out to be 1 by 6, but it's strictly above that, right?
It's an incorrect answer, -1. We move on to the next question. Akin Kaustubh is sipping a tea of low viscosity while sitting next to his BFF, data analyst Kwanith, who is sipping a tea of high viscosity. Enraged by their affection, diabolically evil alien overlord Dhruv, disguised as the waiter, decides to kill both of them by putting poisonous crystals in their tea. The crystal needs the crystal needs to be resolved completely for its poison to be effective. Who dies and who cries? Explain. IIT Bombay.
Solubility is
inversely proportional to viscosity.
Can you elaborate on the answer?
Since solubility is inversely proportional to viscosity, lower viscosity will have more solubility, the crystal will dissolve and that person will die.
So you're saying lower viscosity means more.
So lower
Yes, so Kaustubh will
viscosity,
die.
so Kaustubh will die.
Yeah, that is correct.
That is the correct answer. +3 for IIT Bombay. One clarification, since the previous question you guys answered after your timer was up, therefore the negative mark won't be considered. Yeah, no marks. The
No minus one. Minus one is okay.
We are considering. Move on to the next question. In order, okay, there are two plots of land. One plot consists of one patch, which has two species of tree A and B. Here, the minimum amount of resources required for A and B to survive differ. The other plot has multiple patches, and there are two other tree species, C and D. Here, every time C colonizes a patch containing D, it outcompetes D on that patch. Is the coexistence of the two respective resident tree species possible in either of the plots? Why or why not? You are free to choose immigration and immigration rates for individual species. IISc Bangalore.
I think so. It would not be possible. Yeah. In case of plot with A and B, since both of them have compete for similar resources, but the minimum amount differs. So the one which requires less amount of resources is more likely to outcompete the other if the resources are limiting.
What about in the other patch?
In the other patch, we see that if C colonizes a part, D is outcompeted, so they can't coexist.
Okay, your answer is half correct. It's wrong, basically. So, I mean, will anyone from the audience like to answer?
Is the answer incorrect? Yes. The answer is incorrect, -1.
Yeah. No,
I don't think it works
yeah,
like
so
that.
anyone from the audience?
So I believe that the second plot may show coexistence. So if D can colonize faster.
Yeah, that's true. So in the second patch, if the inferior competitor has higher colonization rate, they can still coexist because it will colonize the patches which are vacant.
With this, we move on to the next question. Explain which carbene is formed when bromochloridomethane undergoes alpha elimination with a strong base. Team 2, Bombay.
Singlet carbene is formed CHCl.
Okay, you don't need to comment on the structure of the carbene. Just tell me what will be the substituent groups on the carbene.
CH and Cl.
That is incorrect.
That's incorrect.
Does anyone in the audience want to try?
-1 for IIT Bombay.
The bond between carbon and the iodine is the weakest among these three. And so iodine will be eliminated and the bromochloromethane carbene will be formed.
That is correct. So a strong base like N-bully would remove the hydrogen and then iodine would get eliminated, or rather leave because it's the best leaving group.
Okay. Next question. In 1952, nearly 4,000 people died in an event known as the Great Smog of London. Sulfur dioxide accumulated in the atmosphere, causing severe respiratory distress and eventual death. This event took place in a particularly cold winter with very low surface temperatures. Would a sulfurous smog event of this magnitude be likely during the summer? Why or why not? IIT Bombay.
No, it will not be possible because in winters the sulfurous smog has condensed on the surface of the planet, and in the summers it will evaporate and remain in the atmosphere.
Can you tell about the point of why it's happening in winter again?
Because it's it forms the wet smog on the surface of the planet, not on the atmosphere. It condenses from the atmosphere on the surface.
Not really, no.
Because in the winter when the
So the answer, I'll take the first answer.
Yeah. It's incorrect. -1 for IIT Bombay. Yeah.
Anyone from the audience? Yeah.
Okay, we have.
Take the mic.
Same explanation as his. It's just that in winter the density of air will be more, so the smog will rise and form an enveloping sheath kind of a structure.
No.
Okay, so I request the KMC to explain it.
So in the winter, usually happens is the ground will become colder than the air above it. So it will cool the air above it. So what happens is that you will have the cooler air at the bottom and the hot air at the top. So since cooler air is denser, it will always be at the bottom. So the smog of sulfur dioxide would remain near the surface. But in the winter, but in the summer, the ground will be hotter, and so you will have again the hottest at the ground, and then it will, as you rise up, the temperature will drop. So you will have a greater mixing of the sulfur dioxide. So people of London won't inhale that much smog. So.
Okay, we move on to the next question. Let tau n be the number of divisions of n, including 1 and n. Find the maximum value of 3 tau n minus n and explain. IIT Madras.
It would be n because tau is basically a torsion function. Yeah, it's n times 1 minus half into 1 minus third dot dot, like where all the prime factors are present. And if you if you only have a factor of 2, the 3 would be multiplied inside. You would have 3 by 2. I'm sorry. You multiply 3 into 1 minus 1 by 3. You have 2 there. So it's 2n minus n.
What's the bound? What's the answer?
N.
I need the maximum value independent of n.
Oh.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
Would anyone from the audience like to answer? Yes, Kinjal the Brinjal.
-1 for IIT Madras.
Well, see that tau n, if you consider one of its divisors, if it's divisible by chi, then it's n by chi, right? So the maximum number of divisors below that is n by chi, and then it can have 2 divisors, n by 2 and n. So tau n is always less than equal to n by chi plus 2. Now you multiply tau n minus n by chi is less than 2. You multiply both sides by chi. So 3 tau n minus n is less than equal to 6. And that bound is actually reached. So it's a strict bound.
Good, you were there when I made the question.
Next question. Diabolically evil alien overlord Dhruv schemes the assassination of Princess Tanya. He invites Tanya to his home planet without telling her that the ambient temperature is 5 times the temperature of the sun and the pressure is much lower than atmosphere pressure on Earth. Explain why Tanya is much more likely to die of asphyxiation than being burnt to a crisp. Team 3.
Because the pressure is so low and the temperature is so high, the density of air would be very less, and that's why Tanya would not be able to breathe. And so she'll die of asphyxiation.
Yeah, but why wouldn't Tanya burn before? Why isn't that more likely?
Because there is no radiation. There's only radiation is possible in such a. There is the heat transfer is through convection in such a low density environment mainly.
That is incorrect.
The answer is incorrect. -1 for Delhi. Anyone in the audience would like to answer? Okay.
I'm going to explain this using non-technical terms because I don't know what the technical terms are. The inertia of water with respect to a pressure change is less than the inertia of water with respect to a temperature change. Therefore, because you have a larger pressure, you have massive pressure and temperature changes, blood vessels, etc., will burst, and you will have that causing death quicker. So lack of oxygenation quicker than temperature changes causing death, because of the ability of water to buffer temperature changes better than for it to buffer pressure changes.
So that is not correct. The answer we're looking for is that because the temperature is so high and pressure is so less, the specific heat capacity of air there is lesser. So the burning has to do with heat transfer. So heat transfer will not take place effectively, and that's why asphyxiation is much more likely. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next question. In a neuron, mitochondria undergoes fission only in the cell body, and they are transported through the axons by kinesin and dynein. Kinesin transports mitochondria exclusively from the cell body to axon terminals, anterograde transport, and dynein does the opposite, from axon terminals to the cell shown on the screen. Y-axis is the rate of transport. Based on this, hypothesize why the retrograde transport is also affected in kinesin mutants. Team 2, IIT Bombay.
Because the dynein molecules work on a negative feedback loop, so gives too many mitochondria on that side, then only the dynein will start the retrograde mechanism. Otherwise, they won't transport if there is a lack of mitochondria in the terminals.
Yeah, the answer is correct. Basically, if there's no kinesin, mitochondria will never reach the ends, so there's no mitochondria to transport.
Moving on to the next question. Among cis and trans, which isomer is more stable and why? IIT Bombay.
The trans isomer is more stable. The cis isomer is more stable because of trans effect.
I'm sorry, what?
The cis isomer is more stable because of trans effect.
That is incorrect.
The answer is incorrect. -1 for
anyone
IIT
in the
Bombay.
audience? Yes, Jaggu.
Check. Huh. So basically, there's hydrogen bonding in the trans isomer. Therefore, the trans isomer is more stable than the cis isomer.
That is correct. You made the question.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next question. You and your friends have an aeroplane on some small runway on the equator, and you might need some extra lift for the takeoff. So you have two options. You can either move towards the east direction with your plane, or you can go in the westward direction. Moving in which direction will give you that extra lift? Remember, you're with your friends and you can't pick a side without convincing them. IIT Madras.
We can take advantage of the Earth's spin, which means that flying towards the east would be the advantage.
And why?
Because the Earth is spinning from west to east. Yeah, the Earth will give you the initial velocity. You already have an initial velocity when you're on the surface of the Earth, and if you use that velocity to your advantage rather than going against it, you would get that extra lift.
Yeah, that's correct.
That is the correct answer. 3 points for IITM. Moving on to the next question. Suppose a plane intersects a parallel pipette such that it forms a pentagonal cross section. Can it be regular? Explain briefly. Time up. The question goes to the audience.
Yes, Kinjal the Brinjal.
Mike.
When you want a pentagonal cross section, it will intersect two opposite faces, right? So the two lines of the two lines of the polygon need to be parallel in that cross section. But you know that in a regular polygon, two of its sides cannot be parallel, so it cannot exist. It cannot be regular.
Good.
We now move on to the last question of this round. Dharya, a cranky amateur optics enthusiast, decides to experiment with the following setup. The setup is as shown. An object is kept in front of an altered pinhole camera which has two holes at the same height. A source of light S is placed at a suitable distance. Describe the image on the screen.
The holes are point-sized.
There will be only one point on the screen because only one light ray can pass through both the holes.
That is correct.
That is the correct answer. 3 points for IISc. Okay. With this, we have reached the end of rapid fire. And what a... Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry about that. What a heart-stopping, slightly chaotic, and an unforgettable quizzing journey it has been. With interesting questions still buzzing in our heads and the thrill of that ticking clock, which wasn't visible in this round, I can imagine how anxious we all are for the epic conclusion of this quizzing event. But the much-awaited moment demands a little more patience. Therefore, we now begin with the valediction ceremony. I request the participants to please move back to the seats in the audience here.